All right. Hello, everybody. So a couple weeks ago, I put together a tutorial walking through setting up an AWS server for use in a server-side scripting course using PHP, and we installed the full version of MySQL. And well, I've let my students know this a few times in class. I am brand new to AWS myself. I tried to tell them class started about a week and a half earlier than what it actually did, but I guess they had the actual start date and didn't load up the accounts or activate the accounts until the actual start date anyway. So I'm learning AWS right now. And since that first tutorial, I have found another setup that might be a little more familiar to the students in the course. We've been using XAMPP as a virtual server to test things locally, working with PHP, and we're getting ready to move on to the MySQL section. And I found the setup that will be exactly like the defaults in XAMPP, what we're used to. The PHP 7 point something, as well as MariaDB for our version of MySQL, and PHP My Admin Software for an interface to work with that database. So the same thing we'll have in the XAMPP for our local testing, and what most domain hosting sites are going to go to by default because of the popularity of WordPress. So I was thinking that'd be a better setup, so we'll go through that. This video does presuppose that you have watched the video from 3 weeks ago, I guess, setting up PHP 7.2 and the full version of MySQL 5.7. So we're going to skim through a couple parts getting the server going, but I've got PuTTY and FileZilla loaded for once we get the server open, so we can connect to them and have PuTTY do the initial configuration, but then we'll be able to use FileZilla to do our normal uploads, upload and download files to that server in a more normal fashion. And we'll set it up with PHP, which will be very similar, a slightly different package when we run the installer, and MariaDB, and we will also go ahead and activate the PHP My Admin Software to make it a lot easier to work with that database, have a nice interface to work with. So we'll get all that set up, and I will link to the official tutorial in the comments for the video. The official tutorial does highly recommend setting up a secure connection. I'm going to skip over that for the classroom because in the classroom we're talking about homework assignments, and it'll be small things that aren't critical, but it's definitely a good idea to not skip that if somebody not in my course just stumbled across this video. The link will be there, but it's everything on AWS, it'll generate the certificate for you. You just have to put the certificate in the right spot and refer to it from the right spot. But I'm going to skip over that for the classroom to try to keep it somewhat easier. So I have PuTTY open here and FileZilla. We'll get to those in just a moment. I'll move them over to my other screen, get them out of the way, and I went ahead and logged on to the AWS console. So first thing we need to do is set up an Ec2 instance so we have a server with some processing power. And that was covered in detail in the previous video, so I'm just going to jump over here to the Ec2 console. Hopefully the internet's not going to run too slow while I'm filming this video. Doesn't seem to be going very quickly though. Oh, there we go. And I'll just scroll down a little once the page loads enough. There we go. Scroll down and launch a new instance. Did it launch? Oh, there it goes. And once again, we can do this on the Amazon Linux 2 AMI, all of that stuff. I'm not going to read that right now. And the 64-bit x86 processor will work. architecture for a processor will work. So we'll hit that. And once again, the default settings should be good for us. The free tier eligible T2 micro storage. So I'll hit next. Our particular instance details. The default should be good. Yours will probably say the default subnet here. I switched to a different subnet, but the default settings should be good. So next, the storage, 8 gigs, probably plenty for us. That's a huge database. We don't need any tags. And just like in the previous setup, when we get to the security group, we will need a couple security groups. So SSH running on port 22, and we want to be able to access it from other computers, pretty much any computer. We don't know what one we might go to it from. So all zeros means we can access it from any other computer. And we will use SSH port 22 for FileZilla as well for the FTP transfer. But we also need to see this on a web page. So we also need to add an HTTP access on port 80. Again, all zeros for who can access it. And it's a really good idea to have the secure. Since we're adding the database, I'm going to skip that step. But once again, we just select the HTTPS security group on port 443 and all zeros so that we can access it from anywhere. And if you restrict it to just a certain computer or two is able to access it, it's a good idea to give those names so you can tell which one's which. But so SSH, HTTP, and HTTPS will be how we're accessing this server. So PuTTY and FileZilla, or whatever shell you access the server through, but I'll be using PuTTY and FileZilla, and then web pages. So all that looks good. Hit review and launch. Go ahead and launch the instance, and we need a key to access it. So I'm going to create a new pair. I will call this video key. Just give it some sort of name and download the key pair. Scroll down a little and finally launch the instance. So it should be launching. So I'll click this back over to the EC2 console, so we'll be able to see that in just a moment because we're definitely going to need it. But just like was shown in the previous video, Amazon gave us a .pem file, and access it from PuTTY, we need a .ppk file. Also from FileZilla, we'll use a .ppk. So we have a way to convert that should have been installed with PuTTY, which I have right over here on my other screen. So PuTTY Gen, it should have installed with PuTTY, and this will just convert any of the alternative formats for public-private key pairs into the standard format. So we'll just load that in from downloads. It's only looking for PPK files, so we need to check all files. There it is. Load that in. Okay. And Amazon kept the public key and gave us the private key, so we need to save this as a private key. Don't need a passphrase on it. And then just save the key someplace where you can access it. What did I call this? Video-key. That'll finish the PuTTY Gen. And now we should be able to access our server through PuTTY. So I'll go in here. Let's see, this is, give it a name so I don't lose track of which one's which. The video example. And I'll click here to actually get in here. All right, there's the public IP address. So I'll copy that and bring PuTTY back over to this screen. So grab the IP address, paste that in there, We're on port 22 for SSH, so that'll work. And over in the navigation section, we need to come to SSH and the authorization panel. We don't need to expand it. It's abbreviated to auth. And here's where we can browse for that private key we just got. Should be good. So if we open this, it's the first connection, so obviously Putty's not going to recognize it, but yes, go ahead and connect. And I did not change the default name, so it should be EC2-user. And we are logged in, ready to set up our PHP 7.2 and MariaDB with PHP My Admin Software to make a nice interface for working with the database. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead, it's EC2-user access. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back to root access. So type in sudo su. So now we have the root user access, and we are in the EC2-user folder. And just like we saw in the previous video a couple weeks ago, the first thing to do is make sure we have the yum package. I'm going to type sudo yum update -y, because I don't want to hit confirm on every single one. But make sure it's all up to date, and this is really just to make sure yum is available for us. It should be up to date. Oh, nope, it was not up to date. Just a couple things. I guess it looks like there's 13 of them. I didn't want to hit Y 13 times. That's Y enter 13 times. And it's easier to just type it in to begin with. All right, there we go. So now we're up to date. So we can bring in the package we want to install. That's going to be sudo Amazon Linux. Actually, I'm going to clear the screen and type this at the top to make sure it's nice and a nice clear spot on the video. So we'll type in sudo, then sudo Amazon Linux extras. So sudo Amazon Linux extras install, and I should probably make this a little wider so we can see everything. So that's the package we want, and from it we're going to install. Go ahead and set confirmation so we don't have to keep hitting yes every time. LAMP, LAMP, so just LAMP, MariaDB 10.2 PHP 7.2. Then we'll need a space and PHP 7.2. So we're going to install PHP 7.2, and then on our local database server, we're going to install MariaDB 10.2 PHP 7.2 so we can access it with the language we installed right over here. And then this is all in a package called Amazon Linux Extras. So once that's typed in, just hit enter, and it should go ahead and install all that stuff for us. All right, so now we have those packages ready. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and clear this and get back to the top of the screen just to hopefully make sure it comes through nice and clear in the video. Our next instruction for it is sudo back to the yum package, and we're going to install. Go ahead and confirm everything on the install. We want to install HTTPD and MariaDB-server. So install HTTPD, that's Amazon's modified Apache, and we're going to run MariaDB-server. And it shouldn't take too long here. There we go. Once again, I'll go ahead and clear the screen because I think this is going to come through a little bit better in the video if we don't, if there's not quite as much on there every time. So now that Apache is installed and our database is installed and our language is installed, we can go ahead and start up Apache. So sudo systemctl system control, so systemctl start httpd. I believe in the previous video I was using the shortcuts. So this time I'm going to go ahead and go through the normal Linux system control to start stuff. So we're going to start that. All right, it should be running, but I don't want to type start every time, so I'm going to go ahead and do start system control. No R there. I keep trying to type an R. So sudo systemctl enable httpd. All right, so now Apache is going to start every time. We won't have to come back in and restart it. So we should be able to jump over to a test page now and see if Apache is running for us. So over here in the browser, I'll copy the public IP and paste it in. And looking at the Apache test page. So looks like that's all checks out for us. So we can go ahead and set up a couple things. Where's a good place to start? Oh, I guess we'll start with a new index page. So instead of seeing this test page, let's go put an index page on there. And for those who watched the previous video, you might remember I was just staying here in PuTTY and just saying, okay, type cd and then this directory path and moving around. And watching that video, you might have been wondering, well, how do we know what folders to go into and where they're located at? And I knew that because of preparing for the previous video, I did the FileZilla stuff first. In the video, we ended up doing FileZilla last. But FileZilla, we have a nice little interface to see the organization of the folders. So I'll go ahead and log on with that so we can look at the folders this time, because this is probably a better order to do that in. So this was covered in the last video. To put keys into FileZilla instead of passwords, we go to edit. That always throws me off because edit seems like a strange place to enter the passkey. But under edit is settings. We get this dialog box, and under SFTP is the spot where we can load in our file keys or link to our private keys. So just navigate to where that's located. The video key is the new one. Okay. And now we need that address. It's right here, so I'll just copy it from here. Oh wait, that's going to copy the HTTP too. So I'll copy it from here. Copy that. Paste that in as the host. The username is ec2-user. I haven't changed that. We're using passkey, not a password. So leave the password blank and port 22. And if you get a message that says cannot load XML files, that's because you have passwords and passkeys saved in FileZilla. So it'll say cannot load XML files and hit OK, and then another message pops up. And on the second box, don't save passwords. And then that will separate your new key from the password on this machine. Oh, I forgot the protocol. And we're going to access it from Secure File Transfer Protocol. So // for a protocol. SFTP, our public IP address. ec2-user is the default username. But if you change that I assume you know what you changed it to, port 20 and port 22. So now when we hit enter, we should get a connection. There we go. And this is how I knew what folders to go to in the previous video. So I don't see any place here to upload web files to. It's just the SSH. So that's not where the HTML files go. So up 2 levels to the top, and then down here, and I did a whole lot of looking last time, but eventually I found that under var, there's a folder called www, and there's the HTML, which is what Amazon's custom version of Apache renamed the htdocs folder. So that's the folder we need. But if we look at it here, we can see the owner permissions. We have full permissions on the owner, but accessing it from outside, all we have is read access. So we should probably change that first so that we can upload files here instead of using the old style text editors from PuTTY. So I'll move that out of the way. Oh, wait, I lost track of my screens. Where'd my PuTTY go? Oh, there it is. Okay, so like we saw in FileZilla, I'll move this one back and forth. From EC2-user, we need to go up 2 levels and then down into var and www, and then from there we should be able to change the permissions on HTML folder so that we can upload stuff with FileZilla after typing it in a normal text editor instead of right in PuTTY. So change directory ... to go up. That puts us in the home folder. Change directory ... and that gets us all the way up to the slash. So change directory into var/www. And if we do ls with the -l option, we should see the HTML folder with that middle group of permissions not being what we want there. So change mode for others, add write access on the HTML folder. So chmod space O+W space HTML. And now if we do the ls-l, we can see in our second group, the public group, we have a W. So we have write access and can do the rest of the stuff from FileZilla. So I'll bring that back over here. And in the HTML folder, you'll see there's nothing. That's why we're seeing the default page. So if we put an index in here, we'll be able to just load in, drag our folders from here over to that HTML folder and use a normal text editor. So first thing before I forget, I'm going to refresh the connection since we did change those permissions. Abort and reestablish. There we go. So back in the EC2 folder, we'll come over here. We can see we have the right permissions now. So in the HTML folder, and we just need an index page to drag over. So I've got Notepad++ here. Set up a quick index page, .type HTML, start our HTML code. Let's see, have a head section with a title block. Table of contents. /title. Whoops. In the head. Do a body section, and I should probably save this before too long so we get some color changing. So I'll save that, and I'll just save it in my delete folder, my general scratch folder that I almost always work in. And then I want to check the PHP, so I'll go ahead and make this a PHP file. So to test the PHP, I'll just do a simple echo Echo video example table of contents. That'll be enough to test the PHP, and then somewhere down here, there's a list. All our normal web page stuff. List item, href equals something we'll fill in a moment. Another page coming soon. Oops. In the anchor tag and in the list item. Oh, and it's bad form to just echo words back, so I'll make that a level 2 header. /h2. That way we have actual HTML on the page. So save that. Everything looks good there. Hopefully I didn't make a typo there, but if I refresh, should see the index and be able to drag it right over. So it loaded up. And now should hit reload, and there's an index page. So looks like the PHP worked, because that was echoed from the PHP, and a link for another page coming soon, which we're ready to make that other page, because obviously from the description earlier, that other page is going to be the PHP admin console, so we can access our database. But first, there's still a couple things to do in PuTTY first, so let's go back over there and I guess really just start the database, turn it on. So for that, back over to PuTTY, and I'll clear what's on the screen, hopefully make everything come through a little bit clearer in the video. And we need to start the database. So sudo system control, so systemctl start MariaDB. Should just take a second. All right, there was no error message, so it should be running. And now we need to set it up. So for that, sudo, and then we'll type MySQL _ secure _ installation. So sudo MySQL _ secure _ installation. And it's going to ask us a couple questions. The current password, well, by default, MySQL has an empty string for the password. So our current password is just hit enter, and we need to set a password, something better than just an empty string. So I want to set a password, and new password. And this always throws me off if it's been a while since I've done it. Remember that in PuTTY, if we're typing an encrypted password, we won't see anything. So you have to be very careful with it. So I just typed a bunch of letters and characters, but they didn't show up. So I need to enter that again. Confirm it. And so I've got a new password. Should be ready to go, and everything else we should be good to just hit Y for. So yes, do all that, yes, and yes, reload it, and we should be ready to go now. The other thing to do is, just like the Apache server, I don't want to come in here and start it every time, so I like to go ahead and enable it so that it starts on its own. So sudo system control systemctl enable MariaDB. And that way it'll start on its own every time. Next up, for the same reason that I went ahead and set up FileZilla, which is that I thought I was done with command lines back in the early 90s, the first time I used Windows, when Windows first came out. So somewhere around 30 years ago, I thought I was done with command lines. I would much rather use a nice interface than do all this in the command line. So I want to set that up. So in order to do that, we need to install the PHP My Admin Software. So a couple things we have to do first. So sudo yum install once again, and we want php-mb, as M as in Michael, B as in box, string, space php-xml-y. We need to type all that. Sudo yum install php mb string machine and berry, I guess is a good word that starts with B. Michael and box. Those typing in letters, those both sound like other letters. So that, and then PHP with XML, and then -y for the confirms. So it should install a bunch of dependencies for us. And now we need to restart Apache. So sudo system control restart httpd. And we also need to restart our PHP. So sudo system control, systemctl restart php-fpm. So F, that kind of stands out, P, and then M as in Michael again. And that one restarts a lot quicker. Now we just need to install that PHP My Admin software. And for that, we'll have to go get it from the downloads page. So I'll come over to the browser and go to www.phpmyadmin.net/downloads. Whoops. Downloads. And this will show us the latest version. If we scroll down a little, all languages, tar.gz, that'll work. So the tar file for the software to install that. And we want to copy and paste it, which you might know, might be well aware that our normal copy and paste options of right-clicking with the mouse or using the mouse or the keyboard shortcuts don't work in PuTTY. So what we need to do is right-click on the link and copy link address. If we bring that back over to PuTTY, when you right-click in PuTTY, it will paste the last thing on the keyboard. So do wget command, so wget space, and then right-click, and that'll paste that link to grab the software. Oh, we're in the wrong folder. Don't paste that yet. We need to be in the HTML folder. So we're in the www folder. So change directory and go into the HTML folder, the one we actually want to work on. And now if we do wget and paste that, oh, it didn't want to do that, so I'll do that again. So phpmyadmin.net/downloads, and the second link here, phpmyadmin, whatever the latest version is, alllanguages.tar.gz. So right click and copy link address. Then over in PuTTY, type the wget command, and then when you right click, it'll put the last thing from the clipboard on there. So hit enter, that'll grab the software for us. So if we hop back over to FileZilla, where we can see things and refresh our view, we'll see we have that the tar file. So we need to go ahead and put that into our, go ahead and unzip that folder and put everything in it into our normal directory so we can access it. Which is going to seem like a fairly long line of instructions if you're not used to Linux. If you're used to Linux, this is very straightforward, but if you're not used to Linux or working in command lines, it's going to look like a lot. So we need the make directory, so mkdir space, and we'll call it php my admin, and it's case sensitive, so be careful how you spell it. So we're going to make a folder called php my admin, and then we're going to put some stuff in it from a tar file with options -xvzf, so x, vacation, zoo, famous, I guess is a good word that starts with F. Those options into the php my admin, and then that whole name right there. So it was php my admin -5.1.0 all languages .tar.gz. So we're going to take that zip file -C, and we're going to put it in the copy it to the php my admin folder with the options --strip -components, components. Okay, yeah, I had to check the spelling on that. Strip components space 1. So all of that. Make directory mkdir php my admin, and it's case sensitive, so take note of how you spell it. Then 2 ampersands, tar with -xvzf options, and php my admin -5.1.0 all languages.tar.gz is what mine is. You might have a different version, so just make sure it should be on the previous line. So copy from that. -C and php my admin, the name of the folder we just created, and --strip components space 1. So all of that stuff. There we go. And now we should be able to look at FileZilla and see if that loaded in correctly. Reload. There's the php my admin folder. If we look in there, it looks like there's tons of stuff. Okay, so go back up to this level. Looks like that worked. And we need to remove that folder, or remove that zip file. But notice on the zip file here, we only have read access. So we have to remove it from PuTTY. And our command for that, clear the screen, is going to be rm the name of that folder, php. Can I get back to that command? I seem to have lost track of it. All of this, php my admin -5.1.0 all languages. I don't think I can keep that on here, can I? Well, actually I can do this. I scroll back up to it and erase everything from this line except for that and put in the remove command. So rm space that big long name of big long folder, zip folder name, and yes, remove that. So now if we go over to FileZilla and check that, okay, there we go. So now we have that software installed. Whew, we're almost done here. So it's all installed. We just need to go in and access it. And we have the folder name, and all the stuff in there. There is an index file. So if we bring our index page back over, we should be able to just put a link right into that folder we created. It goes in the Php My Admin folder, and I'll put some useful words here. Php My Admin. Save that. Do it the easy way. Refresh the view and bring the new index page over. Replace it. Now, if we go into the table of contents page, reload that, we have a link to it. And if if the MariaDB is not running, you need to start it. I went ahead and enabled it so it automatically starts every time. So it should be running. So click the link. The title block looks good. There we go. So our username should be the username for the site, ec2-user, and then that password you entered for the MariaDB. Should get us right in there. Uh-oh, that might not be the right username. Oh, I had to double check it. I should have known that. It's just basic MySQL. The username is root, and then our server, or then our password that we put on the server. There we go. That time it logged in. Sure, save it. So this is the Php My Admin console. Basically a nice interface for working with MySQL databases. We can enter all our code here or import an entire file if we already have it. A bunch of clicking around instead of typing all the commands right in a command line. So I'm just going to give this a quick test. Let's call this testDB, and create a test database. And in SQL, I'll go over the SQL command and create table. I'll call it test table. What do we need here? Something called test ID. Will be an integer, primary key, auto increment. Then I'll make one called words. I'll just do varchar 64. Variable characters 64. I considered making that just a blob, but that'll be enough to test it. Just an ID and some words we'll pass in. Should work for that. So we hit go to run that SQL command. That all worked. If we come back to the top level here, we see we have a test table. No data in it yet. So we run do a quick insert. Insert into test table. In the words column, the values hello world. They're just the standard test. And run that. And if we come back over to our structure, see we have a table, test ID and words in it. Maybe this one. This is the one I wanted. So yeah, there's the table. So we have an ID of 1. The words went in. I'll do another quick test just to make sure. Insert into table, in the words column, the values, another test. And run that. Looks like it went in. Come back up here. One table. Looks like it has 2 rows filled out. We go ahead and go in there. Yep. Both our tests came in. The ID is auto incrementing, so it looks like everything's set up to use PHP My Admin to do our database stuff. And then for the course that this video is related to, we can just use our PHP to access that database, which we can see the name here. If I come back up to the top level, I guess here. So our name is going to be localhost. Our address is the public IP address of this server. The public IP address of the server. It is localhost because PHP My Admin is running, and our PHP code will be running on the same server as we're talking about. So that's our host will be localhost. Our username is root, and the password is whatever you set it for. So that should be enough to kind of match the standard setup. Well, due to the popularity of WordPress, our default setup on pretty much any virtual server we install or almost any domain hosting site is going to be a MariaDB with PHP My Admin Software, and we can access it from PHP 7.2. That's what WordPress uses, so that's pretty much the defaults that we get anytime we set up a server, unless we're on AWS and have to actually do all the server admin stuff ourselves. That's what is normally set up for us, so that should match any other testing environment we're using in class. And I will include a link to the actual tutorial, which has all those commands, so you can copy and paste most of those from the tutorial if you missed some of them in the video. But that should be good to get this up and running and handle all our needs for the class.